Close your eyes for a second and try to remember a smell. Not just any smell. The scent of ozone mixed with flash frozen sugar. It's the smell of a kitchen freezer being opened on a humid July afternoon in 1984. You reach past the bags of frozen peas and grab something that feels different. It isn't just cold. It has a frosty, velvet texture that sticks slightly to your fingertips. You haven't tasted it in 30 years. You likely never will again. We like to think that the things we love stay with us, but the history of food is a graveyard of sudden exits. Some of the most iconic flavors of the 20th century didn't just fade away. They were assassinated by corporate mergers, biological plagues, or strange legal loopholes. But before we look at the snacks that were taken from us, we have to talk about a treat that was so popular it owned nearly 80% of its market. Yet it was killed by its own creator because of a manufacturing secret that became a financial curse. In the 1980s, the Jell-O pudding pop was king. It wasn't an ice pop, it was a frozen custard, dense and creamy, with a unique snap when you bit into it. You remember the chocolate vanilla swirl, the way the wooden stick tasted like a mix of birch and cocoa by the time you finished. By the mid-80s, they were making $300 million a year. So why did they vanish? The delay here is a lesson in corporate physics. You see, General Foods didn't actually own its own refrigerated trucks. To get pudding pops into your grocery store, they had to hire a massive external frozen food workforce. It was a structural flaw in their business model. As the 90s hit, the cost of keeping those pops frozen from the factory to your freezer exceeded the profit from the pops themselves. They tried to save it by licensing the name to Popsicle in 2004. But if you tried those, you know, they were posers. They were just flavored ice. The original velvet-textured soul of the pudding pop was gone forever. But while we were losing our frozen puddings, an even more terrifying biological ghost was quietly erasing the world's most popular fruit, replacing it with a fake version that we've been eating ever since.
If you've ever wondered why banana-flavored candy doesn't taste anything like a real banana, it's because it does. It tastes like the original banana. Until the 1950s, the world ate the Gros Michel, or Big Mike. It was creamier, sweeter, and lacked that starchy aftertaste of the bananas in your kitchen right now. It had a thick, rugged skin that meant you could toss it into a crate without it bruising. It was the perfect food. Then came the Panama disease, a soil-dwelling fungus that was effectively a death sentence for Big Mike. Because every banana was a genetic clone of the next, there was no immunity. Entire plantations turned to black slime overnight. By 1960, the Gros Michel was commercially extinct. We replaced it with the Cavendish, the banana we have today. The Cavendish is the emergency backup fruit. It's blander, thinner, and bruises if you look at it too hard. We've been eating a second-rate substitute for 60 years and calling it normal. But the loss of a fruit to a fungus is one thing. It's much stranger when a billionaire spends millions of dollars to intentionally ruin the flavor of the world's most famous fast food, all because of a moral crusade that turned out to be wrong. Ask anyone over the age of 45 what McDonald's fries used to taste like, and they'll get a faraway look in their eyes. Before July 23, 1990, those fries weren't just salted potatoes. They were cooked in a secret blend called Formula 47, which was 93% beef tallow. They were rich, savory, and had a crunch that stayed for 20 minutes. They were, by most accounts, the greatest culinary achievement of the fast food era. Then came Phil Sokolov, a millionaire who had a heart attack blamed fast food. He took out full-page ads in every major newspaper calling McDonald's fries a threat to America. Terrified of the PR nightmare, McDonald's switched to 100% vegetable oil. The delay? We now know that the trans fats in that healthy vegetable oil were actually arguably worse for us than the beef fat. We traded the flavor of the century for a health benefit that didn't exist. But even as our fries were losing their soul, our living rooms were losing something even more bizarre. A wobbling, shimmering centerpiece that looked like a work of art, but tasted like a savory nightmare.
In the mid-20th century, if you wanted to prove you were classy, you served your dinner inside a shimmering tower of gelatin. Aspic was the ultimate flex. Imagine a ring of lime jello, but instead of fruit, it's filled with canned tuna, hard-boiled eggs, and olives. You could hear it thwack when it was inverted onto a silver platter. It smelled of vinegar and cold meat. The reason it vanished wasn't just that it was gross, it was the refrigerator. Before the 1920s, making gelatin from scratch was an 18-hour process of boiling calf hooves. It was a rich person food because it required a staff. When instant jello and home fridges became common, the mystery died. It became suburban, then tacky, and finally, forgotten. But as the savory molds exited the stage, a new kind of magic was entering the cookie aisle. A cookie with a liquid heart that was the #1 seller in the country, until a corporate room swap killed it off for no reason at all. In the late 80s and early 90s, Magic Middles were the peak of cookie technology. It was a shortbread dome with a hidden, gooey center of fudge or peanut butter. They were a sensation. So why can't you find them? It wasn't low sales, it was space. In the mid-90s, Keebler bought a new line of salty snacks. They needed more room in their factories to make Sandies and other crackers. They looked at the Magic Middles, which required a specialized, expensive machine to inject the filling, and decided it was easier to just throw the machines away to make room for simpler products. They traded magic for efficiency. But space wasn't the only thing killing our snacks. Sometimes a drink becomes so popular it starts a war between two giants. A war that ends with the drink being deleted from history just to prove a point.
If you went to high school in the 90s, you remember the Fruitopia vending machine. The names were like poetry. The Great Beyond, Strawberry Passion Awareness. Coca-Cola attempted to be cool and hippie. It was a massive success, but by 2003, it was gone in the US. The tension? It was a victim of a brand purge. Coca-Cola realized that Fruitopia was competing with its other brand, Minute Maid. Instead of having two brands fighting for the same shelf, they chose the boring one with better name recognition. They literally smothered the cool kid so the reliable kid could thrive. But while Fruitopia was a corporate casualty, our next item was a biological taboo, a suit that defined the Victorian era, but used a secret meat that we eventually decided was too depressing to eat. So what was the secret? To get that gelatinous, rich texture of real green turtle meat, chefs used the head and brains of a calf. It was a staple of the waste not era. You'd boil the head until the meat fell off, creating a thick, dark broth flavored with sherry. It was the comfort food of the 19th century. It survived through the 1960s in cans. But as we moved towards sanitized meat, boneless, skinless chicken breasts, the idea of head meat soup became a social horror. We didn't stop liking the taste, we stopped being able to handle the truth of what it was. But at least mock turtle soup had a long run. Our next item was a masterpiece of the 2000s that was killed by a packaging nightmare that cost the company millions in cardboard.
The Philadelphia cheesecake bar was a miracle of the early 2000s. A thick slab of cheesecake on a graham cracker crust dipped in white chocolate. It was the ultimate treat in a lunchbox. It was discontinued in 2005 at the height of its fame. The reason? The bars were so delicate that they required a massive amount of protective packaging to keep them from cracking. The resolution is that the cost of the box and the foil was actually higher than the cost of the cheesecake itself. In a world of rising fuel costs, shipping heavy cheesecake in heavy boxes became a financial disaster. But even as the cheesecake bars were disappearing, a childhood classic was being erased for a much more legal reason, a disappearing act involving a lawsuit over a clown.
The McDonaldland cookies were unique. They weren't soft, They were hard, lemon-scented biscuits shaped like Ronald, Grimace, and Bertie. They didn't just disappear because people stopped eating them. They disappeared because of the Great Character Purge. In the early 2000s, McDonald's was under fire for marketing to children. As part of a legal settlement and a brand pivot, they decided to de-emphasize the characters. The cookies, which literally were the characters, had to go. You can't hide a clown from kids if you're still selling him in a box for 50 cents. But what about the things that weren't just food, but toys? A drink that you had to operate before you could taste it?
Squeeze-Its were the ultimate 90s power move. A plastic bottle you had to wrench the head off of. The tension point here is the bottle itself. That plastic wasn't just cheap, it was a specific type of low-density polyethylene that was incredibly hard to recycle. As environmental standards changed in the early 2000s, the toy aspect of the bottle became a liability. General Mills couldn't justify the plastic waste per ounce of juice ratio. The drink didn't die because of the flavor. It died because the fun was a crime against the planet. We think of history as something found in books, but for most of us, history is found in the back of a pantry or the bottom of a freezer. When a food disappears, we lose more than a flavor. We lose a tether to a specific version of ourselves. We lose the crunch of a fry that tasted like Saturday afternoons with our dad, or the snap of a pudding pop that meant summer had finally arrived. These things matter because they are the sensory bookmarks of our lives. I want to hear from you. What is the one flavor from your past that you would give anything to taste one more time? Was it a specific candy, a discontinued soda, or something your grandmother made that vanished with her? Tell me your forgotten flavor in the comments.